Alex, you know what? I see you. I do. I really do.
Oh, that's nice. And that is because we are returning to Pandora and we're talking about Avatar Fire and Ash, the third Avatar film. And this is Alex from Los Angeles.
This is Karan from Pandora. No, just
Ah,
kidding. Just LA.
I wish.
Well, welcome to Movies That Shaped Us. We are two longtime friends who grew up on opposite ends of the globe with very different backgrounds, but are both shaped and are still being shaped by the movies we see and love. In each episode, we cover a filmmaker who shaped our love of movies. Join us as we explore why they matter and review the three movies in their filmography that made the biggest impact on us, starting with their latest movie.
That's right, which is Fire and Ash. So this is our episode on James Cameron. So we're starting with our thoughts on the new Avatar. This is the third Avatar film, and we just saw it the other night at the Chinese theater in Hollywood. You actually can just notice I have my little
There
print.
it is.
Yeah, there it is right there behind me. Folks, I'll put a link below. We have some other footage just from our experience in the theater and a separate video, so people on YouTube can check that out. But as always, like the theater is it's one of my favorites. Actually, in LA now that the ArcLight Theater is currently closed, it's my favorite movie theater for these big experiences, like a big hall, classic Hollywood, legacy history there, great audience, incredible sound, and one of the bigger IMAX screens, not the biggest, but one of the bigger screens in LA. And it's just a fun time for a movie, not premiere, but first night. I love going to that theater. What are your Chinese? You have a good time?
It's so great. I mean, yeah, we both missed the arc light, and especially the dome. But I think
Yeah.
outside of that, just because few people live around where the Chinese theater is, so it feels like, oh, you're driving up to watch a movie. That in itself feels like special and makes it a bit of an event. And then you get there, and even though Hollywood Walk of Fame, all that is a bit of a mad show.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's an
and
experience.
people who don't live in LA, who's never visited LA, like I had not for a while, and I had this impression of, oh, this is like a really fun place. And then you get there and you're like, oh, okay, maybe not so much.
Right.
That said, the Chinese theater still has so much of just legacy and history attached to it. I'm still always fascinated by just looking at the structure outside, and all the handprints and what have you. Like, it just, it's a classic Hollywood icon, really. And then as a theater itself, like it makes it really special. Like, it's so hard right now in the lives that we lead, where how do you like really turn off your phone, really turn off your brain, even if your phone is off, and
Right.
you're always sort of distracted to a point. And I feel like whenever I watch a movie at the Chinese theater, it's probably the most immersive experience, because the screen is so huge and the sound is great, and you made this trek to get there. There's something about the combination of all of those that makes it really special, and this was no exception.
No, absolutely. Yeah, and good audiences too. I mean, the theater wasn't like
Yeah.
100% full, but probably like 80%. People cheering at the right moments,
And
cheering at
people dress up, and
yeah.
it's like a thing in
Yeah,
LA.
it's a destination, like you said, to
Yeah.
go to this movie palace, for lack of a better word, and
Yeah.
especially for a movie like this, which is so much about the visuals and being transported. So we did see the movie. So the Chinese theater is an IMAX theater. So we saw the movie in IMAX 3D with the high frame rate. And as Jim intends, right? And I think that is very important for a film like this, to really feel like you are completely immersed in the giant screen, the 3D, which I do think the high frame rate really helps with the 3D too. A format that I don't like high frame rate on its own, or really 3D, except when I'm going to Pandora. I think of this as the only time I will only try to watch the film in 3D. So yeah, maybe we can
Yeah.
jump in then to our thoughts on the film, which I really enjoyed. So briefly, like we talked about actually the first two avatars already on the show, so I'll post the links below. I've been a fan since the first movie, though it did grow on me over time. Like I wasn't immediately like, oh my God, I love this when I saw the first one. Over time, grown to appreciate it. Very excited about this, and I think it was another a fantastic entry in the franchise. Is my high level view of it. But
Mm.
what are your thoughts on the film?
No, I liked it too a lot. And I've maybe even said this on the podcast before, like I'm not the biggest Avatar head. And of course, the first movie was sort of kind of such a game changer in terms of filmmaking. You've never seen anything like it. So the spectacle of it and the jaw-dropping immersiveness of that is, undeniable, of course. But I also found myself never ever coming back to that movie, and for that matter, even the second one, because it almost feels like, yeah, you've had this sort of like destination experience and then you're done, you know?
Hmm.
Like, am I going back to Disneyland or whatever over and over again in the course of a year? I mean, many do. I don't, right? So
Right, right.
it's sort of similar to that, that when you're there, you really admire the technology, his obsession with this world and all of that, and how did they do it and what have you. But then I just forget everything after, what really happened in the story and such. So when this one was coming around, and just knowing that there are many more potentially that are supposed to be out there, I was a little bit like, is this enough? Are we done?
Hmm.
I wasn't going in with the most amount of excitement, to be very honest. But then showing up to it, you just get swept up, in the immersiveness and the experience. And we'll talk more as we get into the movie.
Hmm.
That to me, this movie, even though I've read that this is a rehashing of the same story as the previous one, which I have very little memory of, so that
Hmm.
didn't bother me because I'd forgotten it. And so overall, I really enjoyed it. I was really kind of transported, which is what he intends. But the surprise for me in this was the character development and the relationships and such. And, he gets a lot of bad rep for cheesy dialogue and all of that stuff. And the previous movie definitely had a lot of those and some like not so great performances. I didn't feel that this time. I was pretty locked in with the quieter moments and the relationship dynamics. Is it a perfect movie? No. Is it overstuffed and bloated? Yes. Does the climactic act, though jaw-dropping and all of that, does it start to, become your not typical, because every moment of this movie is better than any superhero movie that you've seen. But
Hmm.
it reminded me of those sort of bloaty, third acts that a lot of the superhero movies have. And that's what I know, my body language, that I'm getting shifty and I'm
Uh-huh.
getting something is, not really locking in. So there was some of that here. I think there's too many things going on that they actually lose sight of some of the amazing things that they could have explored and just stuck to those. But overall, I had a great time. And I might, dare I say it, I want to watch it again. I have not said that
Wow.
for an Avatar movie.
Wow. You want a return trip? Yeah, I feel that the best way to sum this movie up is it's like a retread of the second one, but I don't say that in a bad way. Like it's more of the same, which for James Cameron actually is really rare, and we'll talk a little bit more in
Mm.
the review about my thoughts with Jim in this movie. But it is taking the last movie and kind of going deeper, I think, into the characters and the emotion, which is what Jim Cameron is incredibly good at too. He does all of his movies start with the character and emotion, and this movie I think ramps it up even more with what Natiri and grieving over the death of their son that happened in the last movie, and how she's the anger that she feels towards the humans and even her own adopted kid and the adopted kid, the spider, the human character in here, like how his dynamic with his kind of dad, even though now his corpse is in this other body, so it is, but isn't his dad. How he's like is still saving him, and they're both kind of saving each other, and there is something that they have bond between each other. Like a lot of fathers and sons have difficulties, right? But there's still that love there, even though it's like a hard dad and like, oh, I hate you, dad, kind of moment things. There's that dynamic going on where that character and Jake too is kind of wrestling with like, do I fight? I now he the end of the last movie was all about like, okay, now I'm gonna fight. I'm not gonna run. So like, how do I fight? Without sort of losing sight of my own, humanity, even though he's a Navi, but like kind of getting sucked in and becoming one with the enemy, even though you're kind of using violence, much like the Ash people in this movie, which were the sort of the new dynamic. Right now, we have this other Avatar tribe that is vicious. They're angry, they're vengeful, they're very violent. They immediately want the guns and want to take all the humans, technology to use against other Navi. So it's like I think Jake's sort of being like, do I want to go that route, or is there some way I can resist? So that I think is the core of this movie is that, like, much like Jim Cameron's movies too. There's so much of this movie is just like dialogue, character development, and then there's this giant action set piece. He spends a lot of time developing and working on characters and the relationships in this movie. That's why the movie's 3+ hours. It's not because there's
Mhm.
endless amounts of action. There's a great set piece in the beginning and a great set piece at the end. But really, the bulk of like the middle of this movie is just characters dealing with their own issues and their own relationships, which is why I think the movie is captivating in that sense. It's
Yeah.
not just about the spectacle. The spectacle's there, but you do care about these characters. I mean, maybe not when you leave the theater, to your point. You know, these might not stay with you forever, where you're thinking about Jake and Neytiri for, the times when you're not in the movie. When you're in the movie, you're locked in that world. And I think that's why these movies are so captivating, when you're watching them.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, I think with this movie, and I don't know, maybe just I just found myself in a headspace where I was even more open to it, or the
Mhm.
fact that it's the third one. So, even we've seen these people now a few times, but
True.
this time, yeah, the relationship dynamic and the character development just really worked for me. Actually, I am thinking about these people,
Mm.
even though the movie's over. So clearly something clicked with me this time. And I think it is because he spends a lot of time just showing these people just being people, like there are moments of just the kids bonding, playing, being
Hmm.
mischievous, what have you. And you can sort of argue, oh, this is like throwaway stuff, but no, it actually matters. And especially when the surroundings in which they are so transportive and just fully realize that you are there with them. And, it's amazing. And then when you have I also have to say that the motion capture stuff on the face has really improved. I think
Hmm.
that I was able to clock in emotions of all the characters really well. Because typically it's really Zoe Saldana who's been, I think, transcendent in these movies, that you really feel her rage and her anger and all of that and emotion, not so much the other folks. But this time, I thought every performance was really good. I was able to clock in how people were feeling, like the elder son who survived, like his dilemma. Like
Hmm.
there's so many character relationship, threads in the movie, like you were saying, grief, or how to be a dad or a different kind of dad. How do you get out of the shadow of your dad? How do you kind of get rid of the pain and the guilt of the son that you've lost, and how do you move
Hmm.
forward from that, and how, the impact on every member of the family, putting yourself before community, or putting yourself before ecology and the greater good, the world. Like there's so many deep themes here, which maybe is a bit of a problem too, I suppose, because there's so many deep themes that at some point it starts to kind of get a little bit jumbled up towards the end. But yeah, I just love the entire relationship dynamics across the board.
Yeah,
We should talk. Oh, sorry.
I want to piggyback what
Yeah.
you said about the motion capture, which Jim Cameron in these interviews always says it's not motion capture, it's emotion capture. Motion capture is
Oh,
not, this is new technology, but I do think that it really shines through in these performances, and also just speaks again to Jim Cameron, which we'll talk more about his films, that he is very much focused on actors and
yeah.
getting these performances out of these actors and developing this technology now that he has where the camera is recording the facial movements. So these aren't animators animating facial movements like on Jar Jar Binks or on Gollum from Lord of the
Mhm.
Rings. Those are animators making Gollum smile or get mad or Jar Jar
Right.
fall down or his facial expressions. These are the actors' performances. And especially in this movie, like I agree with you. Like when I was looking at General Quaritch, like I saw Stephen Lang's performance in there. I saw
It's
Sam
so
Worthington's
good. He's amazing in the
performance.
movie.
Absolutely. They all are, especially
They
like
all
Una
are.
Chaplin too.
Oh,
Fantastic as the new
steals
fire.
the movie in many
And I
ways.
wish she was in it more, honestly. I wanted more of her and the
That's
fire
my
people.
big note, actually, is
Yeah.
that I think, yeah,
But like those the way he's able to capture the actors, and I think also this plays to how they film these movies, which is basically just the actors on an empty stage where it's just the
hmm,
director and the actors. There's no issues with camera setups and costumes and
it's pretty
set
intimate, it
designs.
seems
It's
like.
very, very intimate. And I think that really means that the actors are able to focus so much on their craft. And then the technology captures that so well that this is some of
Right.
like, I was thinking halfway through this movie, like, should Quaritch or Stephen Lang get like an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor in this? Like he was so good as this
So
character in
good.
terms of the stuff that he goes through. But no, I think you're totally right on the emotions that come through and the acting really. The focus of these movies is really kind of in the acting in a strange way. You'd think, oh, it's the Pandora and what it looks like. Yeah, that's all there. But if the acting wasn't good, then the movie would. There were so many kind of like Avatar knockoff movies that try to come out. Oh, we're building this world and like I don't care about the world. I care about the people and the emotions in it. And then Jim Cameron
Exactly.
makes sure that that is the focus. And a lot of that comes through in the technology.
And yeah, and this one especially, because I remember the last one, I sort of had moments of kind of being drawn out because the performance was not good or the lines were bad and this and that. I didn't. have that problem this time at all. I was really locked in, and I actually cried in a couple of
Mm,
scenes.
yeah.
I was not expecting that because it was pretty moving to see just Neytiri and Jake, like their relationship, how they're struggling with the grief part or what to do with Spider. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't want to
That was
spoil that. Like
crazy, that
that whole
scene.
moment
Yeah.
is like incredible, absolute,
Yeah.
so and then just even the relationship between Spider and Courage, like that dynamic. And this is not giving away too much, but there's a moment at the end in the climactic act where Jake, Courage, and Spider, they're all together.
Yeah.
And it's almost like this is my quote unquote biological dad versus the dad who I really admire and want
Yep.
him to be my father. And also the two men kind of looking at each other who've been arch nemesis from the very beginning, but finding some quote unquote humanity to connect with each other.
Hmm.
It's pretty complex, that whole dynamic. It's pretty, so yeah, I was very moved in the middle of this, giant, spectacle, explosive situation. You have this sort of quiet moment between these people. I was not expecting that. So
Yeah.
that was
That's
pretty amazing.
Yeah, that scene was that moment too was a highlight for me. Like
Yeah.
I took kind of a step back, not a step back, but like I was like, "Oh, wow, this is what's going on now, the dynamic between the three and they just the way that it all kind of comes to a head there on that rock and it's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, wow, he's really landing the point here." And I do feel that this movie and the last one were very different than the first Avatar. These last two
Mhm.
movies were a lot about family
Yeah.
dynamics, fathers, sons, daughters, wives and husbands and all this stuff. This movie felt like sort of an end to that chapter in the Avatar universe of like these two are about family, and then the other ones will be other themes. And honestly, too, the other thing that I think I liked about this movie was the other sort of theme and the message of it really was like make war not peace. And then at
Mhm.
some point, if you're just peace and like, oh, we can never fight, like that is actually the wrong thing to do. And the issue that there were with the whales, that whole whale council of like, oh, we never need to fight. The whales are always passive, and even though they're getting slaughtered, you can never, have violence. And then the one whale that does violence to save he's trying to save the rest of his family. So then he gets shunned. I just think that message of the movie, like, no, at some point, violence is justified. Violence
Mhm.
and resistance is justified, and you need to fight back. And if you don't, then actually you're doing that's actually the morally wrong choice to kind of
Yeah.
like let your species get wiped out, which is what the whales, they were going to kill all the whales, like in the end of the
Yeah.
movie. And I think that was interesting. You don't really get movies, honestly, that have messages of peace is not really always the right option. And I think that is an important message, especially in this world today, just in terms of the resistance that needs to, happen across many aspects of our society that sometimes violence is the answer. It shouldn't always be the first.
You have to
And it's,
fight
but
back.
it has to be a tool on the table or else you will get wiped out. And that, I liked that message of this movie, which is sort of like the last movie too. Like Jake kept running away from that. The whole movie was like, I know I'm not going to fight. I'm just going to hide. This is fine. I'm going to protect my family, and that's all that matters. And then he realized at the end of that movie that no, like if the humans are going to keep coming, I have to do something. And that is kind of what this movie also represented, at least to me, which I thought was a
Yeah.
unique message and one that again I think is important in this day and age.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was, I didn't think about it that way during the movie, but you're totally right. I mean, that's what he's saying, which, yeah, sometimes you have to do that. Let's talk about Una Chaplin and
Yes,
and
yes.
the Ash person who I thought was just incredible. Uh, I mean, yeah, the whole persona of this person, how she carries herself, what she stands for, how evil she is, and how seductive she is,
Hmm.
and then the relationship that she and Courage build. Like it's pretty complex stuff. Like it starts with, oh, there's like attraction and lure and all of that over here, but then it's also like, yeah, you found an equal,
Hmm.
and there's like genuine, at least from Courage's standpoint, it feels like he's maybe falling in love a little bit. Like
Yeah.
he's,
Yeah.
he wants to stand up against the army people and what have you, and have her there and side by side, and their forces joining, and just the revelry and that they have in like firing guns and playing with all that. It's pretty, it's awful at the same time. You can't look away. Like I
Hmm.
thought that was really well done. I just wish, this is the thing with, now maybe we can talk about that. There's so many threads in the movie that
Hmm.
this whole thread of their dynamic or her persona just kind of gets lost towards the end because we just don't. She becomes a wife. She becomes an
Right.
army wife, it seems at the end. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
this person will not be an army wife ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like explore that. How would she? Because she's not, she's wild. She cannot be put in this kind of establishment of like, oh, now we are all with the army and
Hmm.
whatever courage says we're going to do that. She's never going to do that.
Right.
So, and I'd read that the dynamic between her and Natiri was pretty interesting. They could have explored that a lot
Yeah.
more, and I was expecting a lot more interaction between the two of them. So that to me was, one of the many such casualties because when you have so many rich themes of these complex human relationships or Navi relationships, it's hard to sort of see them through, and this is the one that I felt the most bummed about because they really teased us so much with this character that I thought, oh, we'll go somewhere. I mean, her name is in the title of the movie,
Hmm.
Fire and Ash. Where is the
Hmm.
fire? There's fire. There's no ash. I want more ash.
Yeah, this gets back to the thing that was a little surprising to me about the movie too, which is this is the first time I've ever gone into a James Cameron movie and felt that there wasn't anything new in the movie. And I was expecting, okay, the
Yeah.
last movie, Way of Water, right? It was all about, there was incredible water stuff, new water creatures, all these things. I'm like, okay, now we're going to go to the volcanic part of Pandora and see all these lava flows and
Yeah.
lava creatures. And we really saw none of that environment. And even this new tribe, which was so interesting. The way that they moved was
Right.
different. The way they look and their history is different because they don't believe in the god and they're like going this other sort of more hedonistic route, and they're not really much of a focus of the movie after like the first act. Like they're set up and then they kind of like it goes into all these other things that we've dynamics of characters we've already known and back to the water people, and it just did feel like there was nothing new. And I go into a Jim Cameron movie always expecting some brand new thing that he's never done that we've never seen on screen and some thing. So that was a little bit of a disappointment, I guess,
Yeah.
for me too in the movie. Like I would have loved to have it all just about the fire tribe, and
Or
that was
just you would explore
the
just a
dynamic.
little more, that
Yeah.
okay, she's there now with him and things are going bad because this is not somebody who can be quote unquote tamed, the way you
Hmm.
want. Like that would have been totally fine because the other relationships, though a retread, they are rich. They are going
Yes.
deeper, so
Right.
that's good.
Hmm.
But but yeah, they could have, yeah, that's probably one of the most disappointing things about this movie, only because it started so great.
Right, right. Yeah. I mean, especially again, due to getting back to like the acting performances,
Yeah,
I think Una Chaplin, the way that her performance came through is so unique, and the way that she moved and like her facial
really.
expressions were so different than the other actors, right?
Yeah.
That I was like, whoa, this is like a whole new voice in the Avatar, universe that I wish we had spent more time with her. And she was
Yeah.
kind of hot. And
Extremely
seductive,
hot.
and like she was using those little drug thing and the dance stuff. Those scenes with Quaritch were so cool and kind of
The whole
funny.
psychedelic stuff
Yeah,
happens,
yeah.
and there's a lot of humor between the two of them too, which is great because these movies can be a little bit self-serious,
Hmm.
of like, oh, all these big themes are just fun, good. I
Hmm.
like that, but some levity and humor is also good, and they bring that, which is I think pretty great.
Yeah, yeah. I find the Quaritch character even I loved him in the first film. Like Stephen Lang did a great job, but he was more of a uh very standard. I'll use the word cheesy, right? But that's kind of what
A
you
bit of a
want in that kind of
caricature.
kind of a caricature, right? He was a caricature villain, and now the Avatar version of him or the Navi version of him, there is this like comedic bent, even in the last film, but this one I thought they dialed it up a little bit more, where it
Yeah,
makes it more fun. Like he's like the most fun kind of character. He's having a good time in
yeah,
this universe, whereas a lot of these other characters aren't, like Jake and Natiri and all these, they're struggling and it's like, oh, these
right.
hardships. He's like having a good time. He's like strutting around and like, oh, I'm gonna go to the Ash people and like, oh, this is cool. Like, look at these guns. And he has a smile all the time and cracking
Yeah,
little jokes. So he's kind of maybe one of my favorite characters now, honestly.
I
Even more
agree.
so than he was as a human. I think he works so much better as an avatar.
I agree. The other thing I should say that kind of took me out during the movie is I just cannot get over old Sigourney Weaver voice
Oh,
on
really?
Wild. I
Oh,
just
okay.
cannot. And the whole whatever was happening, the orgasm scene or whatever, where she's helping, Spider and all of
Hmm.
that, though very cool, but it's just all the voice stuff,
Hmm.
I just cannot get over that. I wish they'd done something with the voice, maybe change it a little bit, still have it be hers, but change it. But I that's the part that always takes me out. So whenever she's back, I'm like, oh gosh, old lady's back.
Oh. See, that didn't actually bother me, and I think she does a good job until the end of the film when you see both of them
Oh
on
yeah.
screen together and they're both talking. And I'm like, wait, that is this literally the same voice. And that was the part I was like, okay, this is a little weird.
Yeah, that didn't help, but I felt
Yeah,
that throughout. And she has a pretty major role to play in this movie,
she
actually.
does. Yeah.
So, but the sequences, we haven't talked about the spectacles. I mean,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
so many spectacles from the jellyfish sort of stuff in the beginning, the squids at the end who sort of
Yeah.
take over all the ships, like so cool. Of course, the water stuff is incredible. Like,
Hmm.
I will say the high frame rate, though it's intended, in all the flying scenes, I'm not a big fan because that's when it
Hmm.
really feels video gamey or whatever. And in the big
Yeah.
what are those, the birds or whatever that they sit on that they're flying,
Hmm.
like that looks really fake. But then when they're like stationary by like water or somewhere, it's like absolutely magnificent. You feel like you're right there. So my mileage varies, I think, on the whole
Hmm.
high frame rate stuff. And then the scope and just the way the whole space is shown to us in various, lights and times of the day and
Oh, yeah.
green or just the water. It's just incredible. You want to be there, and you are there actually.
I was gonna say, yeah, you actually literally are there, which is what is so
Yeah.
nice too about the runtime. Like, yeah, it's the longest Avatar. It's over 3 hours. For me, it went by like I wasn't like checking my watch and being like, okay, this
No,
I'm kind of getting
that's
bored.
fine.
And then when it's over, it's like, oh crap, I have to go back outside to Hollywood Boulevard and like back to like the real world. And it's just you really do feel like you're going on a journey to this other place and being immersed in it, which is why I do feel like if you want to see this film, you have to see it in 3D. Like there's no and ideally IMAX. I was actually watching a video of Jim Cameron this morning talking about like the ultimate place in the theater to sit. And he was
Mm,
like had the map of like the seats. He's like,
of
what you
course
want to
he
do
does.
is you want to sit. I know exactly. You want to sit like in sort of the front section so that your entire peripheral vision is just the edges of the screen. So he's like, you don't want to be in a place like we were sitting a little further back, right? Where Pandora's in front of us, but I could still out of the corner of my eye see like the amazing interior of the Chinese theater. But he's like, no, you should be up a little bit closer, not too close, but like so that all you see is the frame, so that you literally are inside of it. I was like, nice. This guy's got an answer for everything. He's the
Yeah,
greatest.
I support that because when I go watch movies by myself,
Hmm.
that's kind of where I sit. Like
Yeah.
I'm definitely in the front section, unless I couldn't get it or for some whatever reason. But yeah, I agree. It's
Well,
also fun to see James Cameron. Like I was watching him on Colbert.
uh-huh.
He's sort of become a bit goofy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't watch much of his interviews, but in my head, it's sort of the King of the World speech and all of that. So suddenly I saw a clip of him and I was like, oh, you sort of seem like an adorable kind of older uncle with like great skin. I'm like, what has been injected over there? It's
He,
like
he
smoothened out completely. How is
yeah.
that possible?
I mean, maybe he spends so much time underwater. I wonder if like the pressure down there,
Or
like
just call Chris Jenner. It's one of the two. It's one of the two. Or
uh,
Lindsay, or the list of
yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
Next is Big Lips Jim. Can you imagine?
Oh, big. We'll see. Maybe that'll be the Avatar 4 press tour. He'll have the lip injections. So maybe then let's move on to our thoughts on that's maybe a good segue to Jim Cameron.
Yeah,
Yeah, what are I can start
go for it.
if you want to, and I just want to put a warning on this that this section, at least for me, will contain a lot of glaze. I worship this man in a way that I don't worship any other artist or any other human being, honestly. He is, it's interesting. So it's like with him, I always associate him. I've done this since I was a kid of like the GOAT, the winner, the number one guy. And sometimes it's fun to root for the underdog, but also I love, worshiping a Michael Jordan, a LeBron James, a Tom Brady, like people that just are the top of their game. Everything they do, they crush. They're the best of than anybody else at literally everything. And there's something about that sort of hero worship, I guess. I just get from him. He's a true Renaissance man. Like he's developed technologies that are for filmmaking, like these cameras for Avatar. but also like real ocean, robotic technology because he just is so interested in so many things and knows a lot of stuff. And I think that also just to me has always come through in his art and in the movies. I think all of his movies deal with themes of characters placed in impossible scenarios and somehow they accomplish it. Much like him, like he sets himself out a challenge every time. So you can't do the Titanic. Oh yeah, well watch me. Oh, you can't do CGI with a whole CGI character. Oh yeah, well look at the T1000. Avatar, like come on. Oh yeah, watch me. And he crushes and he wins. And that I just again, it's in his characters too, are all the same. And that's why it's so fun to watch his movies because it's not like he's making Superman. Where Superman, which I love Superman as a character, we've had an episode about that. He goes into stuff and you know he's gonna win. And that's what it's kind of fun. Like, okay, cool, this guy's awesome. He's always gonna win. But with Jim Cameron's characters, these are like normal guys. Sarah Connor and T1. She's up against his killer robot. Titanic, it's like these two normal people on a ship that's because how the hell are they going to get out of this thing? One of them sadly doesn't, but it's these normal people in impossible scenarios, and then they're able to accomplish something. Just is that feeling of, yeah, like that you get at the end of his movies that I think again comes through in him as a person. And the last thing I'll say was something we touched on a little bit earlier. I think what makes him so great as a filmmaker too is he really does focus on characters and actors first. There's a spectacle there, but if you don't care about the characters, the spectacle really doesn't hit in the same way. Where a lot of his movies too, this very latest Avatar is a little bit different, but they don't start with like a big bang action scene. It's
Hmm.
usually like a slow burn where you get to know the guys and like, okay, okay, where's Ripley at now? And okay, then finally the aliens come in an hour and 15 minutes into the movie. Or Titanic is literally just all character development for two
Yeah.
hours, and then it's like a nonstop thrill ride of the ship sinking. Or Terminator 2 is a lot about reestablishing what's going on, and then the last 40 minutes is some of the best actions that have been put on film. So he purposely is getting you into the characters and into the story and letting the actors shine. So when those things happen, those giant, amazing moments that he puts on screen, you care. And it's not just about the spectacle. It's about, oh my God, is Ripley going to make it out of this? Jack and Rose, like they're on the bow of the ship. Like what's about to happen? You care about them. It's
Yeah.
not just about the spectacle. So I'll stop there because I could ramble on about how much I worship this guy for a very long time, but let you jump in.
No, I agree. I mean, he's sort of singular in that sense, and yeah, I agree with that fact that there are very few people out there who set such a crazy big challenge and then go after it and actually make it happen. And he's done that time and time again. And it's sort of funny that it shows how, you know, society cycles change. Like this is a very 80s and 90s sort of thing, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna crush this, I'm gonna
Hmm.
win, I'm gonna be at the top. And as time has gone by, and even with him, like right after the Oscars, things started to kind of sour because I think as a society, we started to almost look down upon that, right? That, oh,
We're
how
tired
can
of
you
winners.
be,
Right.
yeah, how can you be beating your own chest for the thing that you've accomplished? You should be more humble or whatever, whatever. And we spent, the last many decades in that, and we still have a bit of a chip up on our shoulders about that. But the truth is that, like all things, like it should be a balance. Like if somebody really worked hard and set up a challenge for themselves and came on the other side, that should be applauded. And there's a lot to learn from that actually. And so it's us as people, we just keep, I feel like playing mind games with our own heads of like what's good and what's not, and we kind of get trapped within that. So yeah, I think at the end, like Jim doesn't care what people think, not
Which
that
is
he should,
right, right.
you know.
Well, I mean, he
So
cares about the audience.
he
He
cares about
always
the
talks
audience, but
about
not this sort of like rhetoric.
no.
And he's sort of untouched in that sense. And as a filmmaker, yeah, he's on that Mount Rushmore for sure. And I agree with you. It is about the story and the characters and then the spectacle. It's just that his spectacles are so larger than life that
Yeah.
nobody can even touch those, that it's hard not to just think about that. And maybe that's a disservice to him and the movie kind of movies he makes. And I'm actually we have always a section later, so I'm excited to talk about that, like what he should do next. uh Especially in this case, I think it's a
Yeah.
very interesting kind of conversation, I think. But no, he's one of the greats. And then for me personally,
Hmm.
I've shared this on the podcast before, like these movies, T1, T2, and then Titanic, they are totemic kind of movie defining experiences of my life.
Hmm.
Just because of the age I was and how big these movies were, no matter where you lived in the world. So it's almost like he and his movies are my introduction to Hollywood
Mm.
and big movies and what they can be, and just also at that age trying to kind of figure out how does this even work while you're still learning about being a person and all of that, right? So it's very important stuff, that's shaped our generation in a huge way. And it's almost like I'm actually I feel proud in a way that we got to do that, because the younger generations, they've only watched these movies on, streaming or
Hmm.
whatever. They didn't watch them when they came out. But like the rush of watching Titanic multiple times, or discovering T2 on like a VHS tape or whatever, and trying to understand what this is, because it had never been done
Hmm.
before like this. It's irreplaceable, that feeling. And
No,
he
that's a
gave
re
that to us.
that's a really good point. I mean, these are totemic films, and the amount, and this is again why I think this guy is just the I mean, again, I want to say greatest director because there's other directors that have more, artistic,
Right.
talent or something. But if you look at this filmography, the amount of just like 10 out of 10, totemic, like these were like cultural events.
Yeah.
These things you just said, like I remember again, I wasn't thinking about a T2 in the theater, and we'll talk more about the movie, but that VHS tape was like the thing that you go to any sleepover, we're gonna watch T2 at some point, right? Like as a kid, as a teenager, like T2, and when I remember getting the DVD in college, and it was like always on. I was always playing just T2. And Titanic also was an unstoppable cultural force for months. That thing was like all everyone
Year.
was talking about.
A whole year.
Yeah, but actually, yeah, whole year. Yeah, it was all Titanic. And I think too, like, you can say the same thing about the first Avatar when that came out in '09. Like, grandparents were seeing it. It was on the cover of Time magazine. It would just much like his films do, they stay. Like they have, pretty big releases, but they sustain because people, are like, oh, have you seen the new Jim Cameron movie or this Avatar thing? Oh, I'll get to it in a couple weeks or whatever. Or then you start bringing your friends, and he stays in the culture. So I think the first Avatar for those kids that are maybe a little younger than
Right.
us, not that we're
They
that
saw
old,
that.
but
Yeah.
maybe that was theirs. But like we got a lot more of those because he was more
Yeah.
prolific when we were growing up. But no,
And he
they're
also, yeah, and he was doing
classic.
different things back then. I feel
Right.
like ultimately, though, the Avatar thing has been, I'm sure, very fulfilling for him. And it's obviously amazing to see what he's built. But I do think it's locked him in for
Yeah.
one thing for a very long period of time, which has a downside,
Hmm.
like of what he's offering to people, how people see him, how excited or not excited people are.
Hmm.
Your mileage might vary. So
Hmm.
I'm excited that he's kind of putting a bit of a pause on this, it seems, and trying to think about other stuff, which I think would be good for him, actually.
Yeah, well, we'll talk more about that at
Talk
the
more
at the end of the
about that.
episode,
Yeah.
but maybe that's a little preview of your thoughts. But yeah, this will be really fun to go over these films of Jim. Like we were talking a little bit before the podcast. Like he just has so few films. Period. So once we actually complete this episode, we will have talked about basically all of his films, other than the
Mhm.
first Roger Corman movie that he did that he kind of disowned. But I still think Piranha 2 counts as his first film. But yeah, why don't we jump into our list? So this is the list we always do. This is going to be our first loves, which are sort of our first impressions of Jim and what made us at least from my case, worship the guy. Then we're gonna go to the masterpiece, the movie that resonates with us most, which will be hard because basically all of his movies, in my opinion, are 10 out of 10 masterpieces, best movies ever made, every single one of them. And then finally, we get to the wild card, just another movie we want to talk about that maybe Jim Cameron did something different, or something that we want to bring to the table that's a little bit unique. So, First Loves, technically what he claims is his first movie. So we're starting there with yours, Karan. What do you got for us?
Okay, so my first love is The Terminator from 1984, directed, of course, by James Cameron, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, Michael Biehn. quick log line, if anybody has been living under a rock.
Yeah.
A cyborg assassin from the future attempts to find and kill a young woman who is destined to give birth to a warrior that will lead a resistance to save humankind from extinction. So yeah, this is for me definitely one of those kind of sleepover or
Hmm.
visiting someone's home who has like slightly older children and we are in their room while the adults are, in the living room and they of course have the Terminator VHS and they've probably seen this, 20 times already and it's on and I've never seen it before and I'm just completely, jaw on the floor, don't understand what's going on, but just can't look away. And there are a couple of images from that time that I still remember, like the early prologue of like the machines that are walking
Mm.
around. It's so eerie. And just at that age, just not even understanding what this is. And just like the plot description, which I've seen this movie so many times, but still it's like fresh to me every time.
Yes.
Oh, so this is the future.
Hmm.
This is coming back. Like I forget all of it, always, which is I think it's a good thing actually, because it kind of locks you back in the movie. But
Yep.
just imagine like little Karan's brain at that time, just like not comprehending any of that. And then watching, nude Arnold walking on the street
Hmm.
with sort of his like red vision, trying to get his clothes and what have you. Like those images are seared in my brain because I've never seen anything like that. So that's where the journey began. And at that time, I don't even know what a director is, but I think I pretty quickly knew that this is made by James Cameron. Like that name
Hmm.
was pretty kind of familiar right off the bat. And then since then, of course, I've watched this movie many times. And of course, T2, which we'll talk about later,
Hmm.
kind of maybe classified as like the bigger masterpiece. But I have a soft spot for this one just because it just feels like a 70s movie to me, in its kind of themes and how dark it is and the character development from the beginning of Sarah Connor and the kid and Arnold and it all starts here and of course the action and the special effects all of those become even better in the next one. It's a much more thrilling ride. This one really feels like establishing the world and so I have a very soft spot for this one because this is the first one but then
Hmm.
also this is you got to get to know these people. So yeah, this will always be my first love.
Yeah, this movie, I think I'll say this about most of the films on this, could arguably, and when I watch it, I'm like, is this the best movie ever made? Is this my favorite movie of all time? Every time I'm watching this, but yeah, this is amazing. And the thing that is so great about this movie is like not only you seeing like the birth of Cameron, who's, this was his first, he says this is like, the first movie. This script is sort of what got him known in
Mm,
Hollywood even before the movie came out. But also Arnold too, like which we
yeah,
had an episode a while back about him. He's one of my guys, and this you can see immediately like the birth of him as like a superstar. Like he had already been kind of like this B movie actor, but this you immediately like it just works in terms of what the Terminator is. And this movie too is when you talk about like Jim Cameron trying to do like the impossible things. This was essentially like an indie B movie. There was very small budget, which he
mm,
came from that world, like the Roger Corman world. So he sort of knows how to stretch the dollar. But what he was able to do in with this movie, when you look at this and you think, oh, this is definitely like a giant blockbuster from the 80s, it
yeah,
absolutely was not. Like this
no,
was like a small, like, indie film that happened to like really catch on. And the movie too just really is probably one of the scary movies that he's made. It feels like a horror
yeah,
movie where the Terminator is basically like a Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees, like this unstoppable force. But because he's not supernatural, he's like technological. In a way, it's even kind of like more scary. This
yeah,
robot that just never always keeps coming. Even if you burn him down, like as the skeleton comes out, that was like one of my favorite scenes as a kid. When the exoskeleton comes out of the fire, because you think he's dead. Oh, they killed him when the truck exploded. And then all of a sudden, like he
there
starts
he
walking. You're
is.
like, oh my God, this guy is
Yeah,
never gonna stop. But so like this, yeah, the spectacle is there. But I do think there are a lot of emotions in terms of how it draws you in with Sarah Connor, right? she's just normal girl, doesn't have a care in the world, just this normal, works at the diner, and all of a sudden now she's all these things are foisted upon her. And then you have, Michael Bean's character who knows basically he's sent back to meet someone who's
Right.
always been in love with. He knows, I think he's going to be the dad, right? So he knows this thing's going to happen and he's going to die and never go back. And there's just some sort of this tragic romance element in
Right.
this too with his character that is so cool to see that gradually like, as he starts revealing the things to Sarah about like, no, I love you. This picture is why I fell in love with you. This is why I got sent back. And there's something tragic about the romance piece that always I thought was interesting and always drew me into the
Yeah.
story too.
I always thought Michael Bean was very good looking.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's a good-looking guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
Cameron used him a lot, and then he had some unfortunately personal issues that kind of sidelined his career. But I think he could have been, and probably should have been, like up there with like one of the big action stars of the 80s and 90s. Like he has it for sure. I mean, especially in Aliens, which we'll talk about in
Yeah.
a little
He
bit.
has it for
But the
sure.
guy had screen presence, good-looking guy, great
Right.
actor, leading man actor too. I think for sure.
Oh,
But
definitely. Yeah.
yeah,
And that's the interesting thing too. Like he's the leading man actor type versus the leading man in this movie is not him. But that's the other thing, right? Which is
right.
very 70s-esque. Is like you're
Yes.
like an anti-hero movie where the bad guy is the one that you're not necessarily rooting for, but you can't look away and you're, along for the thrill ride with him. And
Mm-hmm.
and what a kind of director muse combo, what an odd combo this is, but it makes sense, now that we know more about Jim and what he loves and what he's drawn to. It's like the perfect marriage of how these people found each other and made this thing. And then the action, that's the other thing. Like it's this movie is so old, but the action in this movie, the way it's blocked, the way it's filmed, the way it's lit, like it's just so good. Like
Mm-hmm.
you know exactly what is happening at all times. I was reflecting on that even watching Avatar, like some of the hand combat kind of action sequences where there is CGI and all of that, but
Mm-hmm.
it's never done in a way where sometimes I'm like, I don't know where the people are, or I'm sort of lost. I've lost track of what's happening. He's so good at like really locking you in because it's so meticulously kind of storyboarded or thought through,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not, and the pacing is like perfect
Mm-hmm.
always. And you see that right here in the first movie, that the action sequences are not just jaw-dropping and thrilling, but they're precise.
Oh, absolutely.
And they're not, I mean, they are showy, but they're not showy for the heck of it, Like what's happening. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that very
No, no,
well.
no. I totally get it. And just like I guess a brief comment on Avatar to go to back a little bit to your point around like the how that action is shot. What I think makes him unique, especially in this world of more like digital cinematography and where, basically the Avatar is a CGI movie. All CGI. So you can do anything you want with the camera. You can do like David Fincher, like go through the keyhole up the thing, or like these cool shots, in like Avengers Endgame, where the camera's doing all this wild stuff that you'd never be able to do with if it was a real camera. Jim Cameron treats the Avatar movies as if he has a real camera. There's
Right,
never weird stuff he does. It's like, okay, if you're flying, the fake camera's gonna be placed locked onto this wing of this flying creature as if it was real, as if the camera actually was there. And I think that
right,
helps you feel that the action is real, as
right.
opposed to immediately being like, oh, the camera's doing things I know is impossible, even though it's thrilling to like do this crazy zoom shot. They couldn't do that if it was real. So he
No,
makes the choice to be like, every shot I'm going to do, every placement of my camera is going to be as if it was a real camera to make the audience feel more real. And I think it goes back to like his action in movies like this, where he
yeah,
really knows how to do this. And again, on such a small budget, these scenes still feel like the car chase in this movie is thrilling, even though
yeah.
they probably barely spent any money on it. But just having Arnold, on top of the car, and it's like he's trying to get through the window, and it's
Amazing.
amazing. Like you're on the edge of your seat.
That's very well said. I think you captured what I was trying to say,
Yeah,
that
we're
that's
saying the
what
same
he's
thing. Yeah,
doing. Yeah.
yeah.
And it comes through, for sure. And then like the score and,
Ah, I love the score of this.
all of it. Yeah, this movie is just absolutely epic.
No,
Which maybe is a good segue into your first
exa
love.
exactly. Yeah, my first love continues the Terminator story with Terminator 2, Judgment Day from 1991. Again, everyone has seen this. We've actually talked about this movie already on the podcast, but I'll do the plot summary anyway. A cyborg from the future, identical to the one who failed to kill Sarah Connor, must now protect her 10-year-old son John from an even more advanced and powerful cyborg. Obviously, written and directed by James Cameron. Arnold Schwarzenegger's back. Linda Hamilton's back. Introducing new characters: Edward Furlong as John Connor, and then Robert Patrick as almost the scene-stealing role of the T-1000. So this movie, as I kind of alluded to already, was similar to what you were talking about with Terminator 1, which was also the case for me too as a kid. Like this movie was always playing, always sleepovers. At some point, we get to watching some, of Terminator 2, which was crazy when you think about this too, because the movie's rated R, and I was like 10, 11. But this movie just feels like it's almost PG. Like it's the most kid-friendly rated R movie I think like of all time. For some reason, and kids, it's like I think maybe the main character is a kid, or you have
Right.
John Connor is like this 13-year-old boy, kind of little badass kid. But yeah, this movie is again, when I watch it, maybe the best movie ever made, maybe my favorite movie. Is so perfect. And what is awesome about this movie too, and we'll talk about the other sequels that uh, Cameron's done, is I think with a sequel you can even do like two things. You can either take the same thing in the first movie and make it bigger, or do something completely different. And this is an example of what he took it's the same thing in the first movie and made it bigger. I mean, it's basically the
Hmm.
same plot. A
Hmm.
Terminator comes back from the future along with a person from the future trying to protect someone, and it's like a cat and mouse game where they're trying to, kill each other and protect somebody. It's literally the same plot as Terminator 1. But like when you're watching it, you don't care because he big
No.
ups the elements. It's yeah, it's the same plot, but now it's not just like Michael Biehn coming back, it's a Terminator coming back. Oh, this is a new twist. Okay, now it's not just the regular, T-800 coming back. It's this liquid metal guy. Like what is going on here? This is so different. And Sarah Connor now is a wholly different character.
Right.
It's just incredible what they did with her. So it's a great example of like how to execute that type of sequel, which I don't think Jim originally planned on even doing this. I think coming off of The Abyss, his career was sort of in a like not in a great spot, and he was convinced by the people who bought the rights to the Terminator, you should come back and do this again. So it wasn't
Mm.
even like him coming from his heart and be like, I need to tell another story about Sarah Connor, but he just does this and like amazing. Just yeah, you can't talk about how good this movie is, and just like totemic scenes too, where especially
Oh,
the atomic bomb scene going off, which is every time I think of a nuke, in any context, no offense to the movie Oppenheimer, but I think of this. When you see the bomb go off and all the kids in the playground and Sarah Connor's like
yeah.
screaming on the fence and the fire comes, she turns into the skeleton. I mean, it's like harrowing, and
Yeah.
just so well executed. Anyway, I could talk a lot about this. Let's get to you, and then we can talk a little bit more about it. But yeah, what were your thoughts on T2?
Yeah. I mean, when I go back in my memory, like the way T1 was, little me trying to understand and just being like confused, but still can't look away and scared, like all of those feelings. T2, because I was a little bit older, was sort of like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. And I want to see more of it because I had a little bit more comprehension. And
Uh-huh.
also, I think this movie is more fun because of
Yes.
the dynamic between the two of them, which appeals to like really all ages, like the cat and mouse, like you were saying, and then just the CGI, like those images of the phone and the melting things kind of coming together, like and the way he runs and the arm is slashed and then it grows
Yeah.
back up, and all of those things are indelible moments. I don't even have to watch the movie to kind of remember these moments, but you just wanted to see that more and more for sure. But then, yeah, as I've grown older and watched it many times, like this movie is obviously a great thrill ride, but it does go deeper. And I was thinking about this in the context of Avatar again. Like, I think
Mm-hmm.
this is a great way to do a sequel where if you're redoing the same story, just keep a couple of two or three different elements, and that's it. I think
Mm-hmm.
Fire and Ash has a couple of those different elements, like the Fire and Ash people, Una Chaplin's character, the relationship between her and
Courage.
Courage.
Yep.
That would have been enough, you
Mm-hmm.
know? I think there are too many things that I've sprinkled, even though the baseline spine is the same.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the perfect sequel probably ever made, maybe other than The Godfather 2.
I was
But
gonna say the movie we're gonna talk about in a little bit might be that for me, but yes, it's definitely in the conversation. Like T2, and I'll just say Aliens, T2, Aliens, and Godfather 2. I think those are the ones where you
yeah,
could have very strong arguments for best sequels of all time.
totally. But
Yeah.
this is definitely, yeah, it's up there. And what a thrill ride. And it's fun to see Arnold kind of deepen his character and his persona. Like he feels even more comfortable. Because in the first one, it's for the point, right? Like he is
Hmm.
this cyborg and it lends itself really well to the awkwardness of Arnold. Versus in this one, because he's been here in on Earth as the character and also as Arnold for longer. There's a vibe to him, he's
Yeah.
cracking jokes and trying to be more human. There's a lot of humor in that, but it's a kind of a good play with the cat and mouse because now he's the more human one,
No,
and you're
absolutely. And I
rooting for
think what
him.
the other reason why this film works so well, and again, an improvement or a difference in the first film, is that dynamic between John and the Terminator. And there,
Right.
it is a very much like a father-son story in a way,
Totally.
right? He never had a dad, John Connor, because his dad died, right, when he in the first Terminator movie, never got to meet him. And over the course of this film, you get to see like, Arnold sort of learning also how to be a dad. Like he starts out sort of like this distant, Don Draper-esque, like, I'm not in touch with my emotions. I'm just here to do the things that on paper I'm supposed to do, protect you, listen to you, whatever. And then even though he's still a robot, he does sort of learn to love. He says in the end of the movie, so I'm gonna start crying talking about this. It's so sad.
Uh,
It's like, now I know why you cry. It's like so. Oh my God, I love this movie. So anyway, it's like you see him turn into yeah, like a human and a real dad for
yeah.
for him. So you're sad at the end when his thumb goes into the
Yeah.
lava. It's a very sad moment, and John
Yeah.
Connor's there screaming like, no, you can't go, because it's like, your dad. And and we talked about this in our episode on fatherhood too. Like for a son, the dad must die for you to become a man, and they have that part of this movie too. But
Yeah, no, there's a
just
lot
brilliant.
of that stuff. And yeah, this is what Jim does. Like he's not a guy about like nuance in terms of emotion. These are like big
No.
emotions.
Right,
These
right.
are like, you know, they're simple and big, but they are kind of at that level that everybody can connect to. They're universal emotions that everybody can feel and they are kind of the foundational blocks of who we are as people,
Hmm.
which is why, like you said earlier, these movies are enduring because of that. Because these are universal emotions, and these movies are evergreen because of that. Because these emotions will always resonate,
Exactly,
no matter when
exactly.
you watch them. And I think for our generation, because we watched them as kids, they've kind of seeped into our bloodstream even more so, right? Because we were
Absolutely.
shaped by them in some ways, and especially when you're presenting these big simple emotions in big setups that are larger than life that you can't look away, the alchemy of all of that is even more powerful. Of course it is, right? Like the same emotion can be done in like a small room with powerful acting and such, and that'll be incredible. But when you've upped the ante so much, it's going to land on you the way it did.
Oh,
So yeah.
absolutely, yeah. I mean, the last 40 minutes of this film, like once they're in the Cyberdyne systems and the cops come, and then they basically like, there's that whole chase to the end of the film, is some of like the biggest action they've still really ever been put on screen. And the fact this was before a lot of CGI, obviously the T-1000 was, he broke ground, he did the impossible as a filmmaker by doing the
Mhm.
CGI T-1000 is just even more impressive. Like the helicopter stuff. Like I still don't even know how they did this. Like an actual
Yeah.
helicopter chasing that the truck, and just like it's nonstop. Or Arnold with that incredible like that gun when he shoots like the
Yeah.
tear gas guns at the cops. Like poof, poof. It's like so
It's
cool,
it's
but
so
big.
good.
Like to your point, it's like big. Everything is just big, big, big in this movie, and that's what Jim does. He delivers big spectacle, right? And this movie contains some of the best, again, action I think ever put on screen, and still
Yeah.
holds up. There
Big
was
spectacle in all ways,
absolutely.
emotion, human relationships, as well as explosions and whatever the hell is going on screen.
Yeah, I will say the interesting thing about watching on this rewatch, I mean, again, I've seen this movie like hundreds of times, but on this latest rewatch, just, yes, people talk about a lot of, okay, now we're in this world of AI, right? And, these themes might, matter more now because, back then AI was just a thing, etc. What I found kind of interesting was like in this movie, right? There's a guy who is a scientist who works at Cyberdyne, and he's the one who sort of for, scientific discovery creates the situation where then Skynet gets created. And then he is told, hey, like you're basically going to create, the doomsday device. It's sort of like an Oppenheimer situation. Like, do you want to still, here's what it's going to happen. The bomb's going to go off. Do you still want to do it? And he says, oh my God, no, like I'm going to come. And he actually sacrifices his life to
Right.
stop what he was building. And I was thinking, the current knucklehead CEO tech people we have today, if you went to any one of them and said, hey, by the way, this new tech you're developing, like it's going to destroy the world, they would be like, no, it's not. I can fix it. I'm not going to. I'm like,
No.
I want more Dysons around to say to people like, you know what? Actually, I'm going to stop. There is a point where we should not innovate and not develop new things. If literally, like he was told, this is what's going to happen. I just feel like I wish we had more of these guys around, the Dysons who would sacrifice their lives to save humanity instead of dedicate their lives to destroying humanity like these
Right.
tech CEOs are doing today. Just that
Yeah.
that thought came in my head this time. Like I wish that, they would be right there when he drops the thing and blows everyone up. That character's also cool too. And I love that dynamic too of this emotion of like, should I kill this person, right? Like Sarah Connor is gonna be like, I gotta kill this guy, which is kind of similar in Avatar, the latest one, when the question is, okay, if we let this boy live, he might destroy our entire species. So should
Right.
we just kill him?
Right.
Like that's a really tough question. I mean, there's
Yeah.
answers on both sides, but like you have to, in Avatar and in this movie too, both characters realize like there's got to be another way. Like, yes, every life is precious, and you don't want to get into games of like one life versus 10,000 lives. Like you try to find another solution. So I like
Yeah.
how that is in this movie too. And the other thing that I always find interesting about this film was the message of the first movie. The movie ends in Terminator 1 with Sarah driving off like there's a storm coming. And she's like, I know. And it's like destiny, right? You cannot change the future. She now knows the robots are coming, the world's going to get destroyed, but she's driving into something that she cannot control. Whereas the end of this movie is literally like the future is what you make it. Totally different message. There is not predestination. You have control to make the right decisions, and we can make a better future. And I
Hmm.
always love that how he sort of flips the message of the movie and kind of like rechanges what the meaning of Terminator is into this
Hmm.
more hopeful and you have agency that we
Right.
have as a species. The future is not set. We can make better decisions and do things and build a better society. It's not like Skynet is definitely coming. So
Right.
I love the end of this movie, and that message is I always find pretty powerful. But coming from Jim Cameron, who is someone who is a force of nature, who thinks anything I can do and I just put my mind to it, I can do it. It sort of does, I think, fit his ethos a lot more than the first movie, which ends on a more of a depressing and
Somber. Yeah.
nihilistic viewpoint.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree. And I believe in that message that you always have a choice,
Yeah,
to make it might be the harder choice, but you can't, yes, systems, societies, all of those things can be overbearing and such, but you always have a choice. You just have to live with the consequences of whatever choices you make,
that's right.
and so yeah. While somebody who didn't have a choice is in my next movie.
Oh,
Well, my masterpiece, which is masterpiece time
yes,
now,
it is. Let's do the
uh,
masterpieces.
is I'm just gonna go with the obvious answer, even though a lot of these movies can be masterpieces, like you said. But
Yes.
I think this one, in my mind, sort of takes the cake, which is Titanic,
Mm.
just because what a phenomenon it was and still continues to be. And I don't think this has been redone
It
since.
never will, in my opinion.
It
I think this
never
is
will,
the last Hollywood
because there's
classic
so
movie.
many reasons of what the movie is, where we were as a culture in the whole world, how we consume content. Like there's so many factors that kind of line up to make what this thing was. But yeah, I mean, I don't need to give the description or anything because everybody knows
Yeah.
what this is. And
Hmm.
we also covered this movie on the podcast
We did.
before.
We're a Leo episode. Yeah, yeah,
Leo
exactly.
episode. No, but this is, I mean, for our generation, as teenagers in the 90s, this movie coming out and just blowing everybody away, and you had to watch it a million times. And this is probably still the movie that I've seen in the theater the most number of times till this
Mm.
date.
Yeah, I think actually the same for me, to be
Yeah.
honest. I think that this would be
Yeah.
the
We just
answer.
had to because we went with different people,
Yep.
and it was like we've been saying this entire episode. I feel like this movie is that encapsulation of world building, relationships, societal things, who we are as people, ordinary people, obstacles in front of them, but then set in the giantest of spectacles that can be, and a spectacle that is a period piece,
Mm-hmm.
that actually happened, that's in a world. It's not some fantastical thing like the Terminator movies or the Avatar movies that you're going to. I think that's what makes this even more powerful because it's real, and he has recreated what was real, with all these big emotions and the romance and the play and the heartbreak and then also the nerdy discovery kind of piece to it too, because this movie came out when like underwater photography and submarines and all the Nat Geo shows and all that was very much in our culture, right? That and the movie is a great, I think one of the smartest screenplays in that sense of like how they bring you in this world. They could have just opened, in on the Titanic in whenever it took sail.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, they start present day, which adds to the reality of it and why, again, to your earlier point of why you care, because now you are entering this world through old Rose's eyes,
Mm-hmm.
which makes it very powerful. It's kind of becomes sort of this like storybook kind of going back down in memory lane kind of thing, and it also gives you a little bit of a way out because this is someone's memories. It's
Right.
not, it's true, but it's also not entirely true, right? So it's very smart in that sense. And then you are swept away. And as if all of that was not enough, you have the two probably best cast people ever in a movie
Mm-hmm.
like this. He could have gone with people who were maybe not great actors or just were, heartthrobs or what have you. And I don't think the movie would have become what it became. And a lot of that has to do with Kate and Leo, and especially Kate. Like it's her story from
Right.
the very beginning. And she just completely shines. She's still one of my favorite actresses, and it's so great that they still have a relationship, as in Jim and
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
And she's absolutely incredible in this movie. And it's a fun ride, which is hard to say for a depressing movie where so many people died and it's about a tragedy. It has all the big emotions of the fun side, the merry band playing while everything is going down. Like
Mm-hmm.
once again, they're big emotions that stay with you and will always will, I think.
No, absolutely. I mean, this is a, totemic film in many ways. And I remember at the time, like for me, this sort of defined, I think, the mythos of James Cameron. Like he'd had gigantic successes, with all of his films other than The Abyss leading up to this. But this one was the first time I think that Hollywood was sort of trying to turn on him or be like, he's gonna fail. This is not gonna work. He's
Right.
spending all this money. This is such a boondoggle. Like he can't always do the impossible. Maybe this is the one thing he can't do. And I remember all of that press and the delays that were going into this movie. And also the fact too, I was thinking like, why is he doing a historical? Like this is James Cameron. He
Right.
does like action movies. He does sci-fi. I mean, I was gonna be there on day one because I worship
Right.
the guy, but it's like this feels odd. Like this is a weird left turn. For him on paper it seemed like that, but then when you watch the movie, you immediately see, oh, this is like everything that he does, right? Character emotions, giant action where they build up to it at the end. Some of the best, I said T2 is some of the best action on screen. This also you could say is some of the best, set pieces and the fact that they built the freaking, 1/3 scale Titanic down in Mexico to film this thing and like
Insane.
insane, but he got it done, and then boom, like the biggest movie of all time up until up until Avatar, is just seeing that when like the greatest people, these people like this, when you think you should start, the smart people are betting against them, and they still win. That gives them that legendary status. Now they're like, okay, he is in the pantheon of just like historical figures. He's like Napoleon and Julius Caesar to me, because of what when the chips are down, he delivers. You know what I mean? So this movie to me like established that James Cameron mythos. And sort of started at least sort of more of my hero worship, because not only does he make every movie like a 10 out of 10, but now he, did something that everyone thought there's no way he could do. And then won the Academy Award too. Like not only is like critical success, box office success, award success, cultural cachet, like you could not escape this movie. And I think I love how you put this as his masterpiece because I think this is in a way his defining film as a persona of Jim Cameron, I think
I
was
totally agree.
created with this. Like everyone, maybe the film fans kind of knew who he was or the sci-fi guys back when he was doing Terminators, but at this point, like everyone knows Jim Cameron.
Every child, every grandparent, every, but you're right. It's sort of like for a while, the whole "I'm the King of the World" Oscar speech kind of rubbed me the wrong way as
Which I
well.
get. That's,
And
I get it.
that's true. But at the same time, like when you think about it that way, all odds were against you. This should not work,
No,
actually.
it shouldn't.
It
No.
should not work with all the
Right.
delays and what a control freak he was. He really put his cast and crew through hell,
Hmm.
and the money that is spent and who even cares about this subject, who's going to show up. Like I totally get it why everyone would be skeptical. And
Hmm.
then to have made something that was not only good, but like of this epic proportion successful, like you said, of course I'm going to be on the king of the I'm going to be the king of the world, right? Like what do you expect, right? So
Hmm.
I think I've come around to kind of appreciate that. And I think to what you were saying earlier, people need to see that too. That when you really put where your heart and head is, and you put your money where your mouth is, or whatever, and stick to something and really push, and something good comes out of it, you should be celebrated and you should take pride in that. That doesn't mean you crush other people and
Right,
be
right. No,
bad
right.
to them or rude to them. And I'm sure he's had a lot of learning to do. Clearly his personal life and all of that has been, a ride and such. So, you know, I don't have God worship for him,
That's
really, for
fire. That's fine.
anybody.
That's
I
fine.
don't have that for anybody.
He's the only human that's alive that I worship like a god. So someone, you have to have
Uh,
someone. But it is interesting like that because he was like especially on this set, like you said, really arrogant and not easy to work with. But I was actually listening to an interview he was doing about the new Avatar where they're talking about you seem mellow now, kind of like what you were saying at the beginning of the episode. Like he seems like a cooler kind of like grandpa figure,
Goofier,
and he's like honestly like after Titanic, his obsession became like deep sea diving.
right?
And he said the feeling of being in these submarines, like at the bottom of the ocean, like where you're completely just like alone by yourself. He said that was the most humbling thing. That those experiences and working with these people that are the scientists that build the submarines and go down there, these explorers. He said that experience changed him, and he never was the same as a director or as a human again. Because it's very interesting after this film how he basically goes away for and as a filmmaker, for a fictional filmmaker at least, for like over 10 years and becomes obsessed with deep sea diving, developing like revolutionary submarine techniques and going down to the ocean and becoming obsessed with that. Sort of started with this, but we're gonna have a little bit of side tangent. To get back to the movie, yeah, this is one of my favorite movies, and we just talked about it with Leo, and I think this has a lot of the themes too, like you were mentioning that Jim Cameron puts in a lot of his movies around like corporations are usually always the bad guys in all of his films. In this one, they definitely paint, the shipbuilders, the company as like, oh, we gotta, save money by taking the lifeboats off, and we gotta go faster to, beat the headlines or whatever. So those are always his classic villains. And I think this movie just does a great job too around the class dynamics in this, right? Showing the upper class, the lower class. I mean, it's a Romeo and Juliet through class, basically. And I always love too how like the staircase is where they're always like meeting, sort of like
Yeah,
traveling between the different
up and
classes is where
downstairs.
their
Yeah,
meet cute moments, or not their meet cutes, but their special moments are to show like how they're getting united and how the lower classes have a lot more fun. I love the sequence when she goes, "Do you want to go to a real party?" And he goes down and they're
yeah.
like
It's
having a good
so
time.
fun. The
And then it
dancing.
and then
Yeah,
it cuts to like the guys in the upper class and they're like smoking
yeah.
cigars. Everyone's going, "Oh, did you hear about the mine and what happened with so and so?" And it's like so boring. And then it cuts right back down. Everyone just like having a
So
good time.
fun.
I
Yeah.
love that sequence because you're right. This movie is so fun. I mean, even though obviously it's really tragic and sad and stuff that actually happened, but he finds the way to put the fun elements into this up until the disaster, because I think that's how you get involved in the characters, right? Because it comes back
Absolutely.
down to that. It's all about Jack and Rose. That's why you care about the movie, and that's why people went back to see it. If this was just like a historical drama where you're dealing with the real characters and it's like, how did the Titanic sink? I mean, yeah, it would have been, the spectacle would have been there, but it would have felt empty. The only reason you really care about that ship sinking is because you're worried about like Jack and Rose more than anything else. Like, are they going to
Absolutely.
get out? How are they going to get out of it? And again, unfortunately, one of them does, but
Yeah. No,
her heart went
absolutely.
on and it's fine. Like she rode on the beach, so it's all good. Sorry, I'm starting to cry again. All these movies make
Oh,
me cry. These Jim Cameron movies, Titanic, T2, you know.
yeah. I mean, yeah, these are big, he's very good at this simple, big emotions, and that's why they have the impact that they do. It is very, yeah. I have to be in the right frame of mind. Like when I'm not watching these movies, I'm like, this is too simple. And like everything is kind of in a neat little box, and
Yeah.
the good guys, the bad guys, and there's not much gray in his movies. But then when I'm watching the movie, I become the way you are right now because I get sucked into all of that. He because he does such a good job in showing you the stakes of the world, but just these people.
hmm No, it's
And
it's simple, right? And
it's
he's not
simple.
he doesn't have, and this movie came out in the 90s, which was the era of sarcasm, winking at the camera, like all this kind of stuff. That this movie is the exact opposite of that. And even Avatar's after that, he never went in that direction.
No,
Which
it's very sincere.
he wears his heart on his sleeve. Everything is sincerity, like you said. And I think some people can look at that and say, "Oh, this is cheesy." This Avatar, like, okay, this is like cheesy dialogue because there isn't a scene where like Jake Sully says, "Oh, how did I get in this situation?" Or like, "Can you imagine like some quippy sort of MCU style thing?" But that's just not who he is. And I think that
No.
yes, you could say it's cheesy, but you can also say he's like one of the last, if not the last, sort of classical Hollywood filmmaker. You go back and watch movies from the 30s and 40s; they're sincere. They have their heart on their sleeves, and like that's why I
Right.
love those types of movies too. And I
Yeah.
love the movies from that era because it isn't that irony has not been introduced yet into movies, which again, I love those movies too, and they have a time and a place for winking and irony and all this stuff. What I love about Cameron and this movie in particular is it is like, yeah, it is so like sentimental and sincere, and you really need that, and that's what, yeah, makes it so
That's
good.
what sells it, and that's what made it the phenomenon it was, because deep down, no matter what exterior shells we might put, we are sentimental creatures. We always will be. And I
Hmm.
think he like taps into that really well.
Agreed. What a
All
film.
right, what is your masterpiece?
Okay. It's like every movie of this, it's like could be the so my masterpiece is a movie we've already talked about before on the podcast too, and our Mother's episode. It is
Right.
another sequel that Jim Cameron did. It was Aliens from 1986. So this is a sequel to Alien. The plot summary here: decades after surviving the Nostromo incident, Ellen Ripley is sent out to reestablish contact with a terraforming colony, but finds herself battling the alien queen and her offspring. Written, directed by James Cameron. Sigourney Weaver's back. Michael Biehn is in this film now, and we have Lance Hendrickson, Paul Reiser, and Bill Paxton, who just puts in a great performance. So this movie for me is a masterpiece because it was the, like, again, for me, Jim Cameron, right? He, like I said, he does the impossible, and this was someone coming in to making a sequel to a acclaimed film. Alien, the first Alien Ridley Scott movie, huge success critically, culturally, is still like a perfect movie, just so well executed. And you're coming into this scenario like, how can you make a sequel to Alien and make it even close to the first one? And he takes the second path that I mentioned earlier about sequels. He doesn't take the first movie and like make it bigger. He does something completely different, and makes it into an action movie. He even said, I think there's a quote of him of like the first Alien movie is like a haunted house, and the second Alien is a roller coaster. And this movie is just the ultimate, maybe the best action movie ever made. Like the stuff that happens in this movie is so huge. So he does the impossible by getting a sequel that arguably could be better than the first Alien. And he insisted he directed this. He wrote a screenplay for it that was really popular. But they were trying to put other directors on it. And this again is he knows his vision and does not compromise. He's like, I will not make this screenplay unless I'm the one making this movie. Even though at this time Terminator hadn't come out yet. it was made and the script was out and people liked that, but he hadn't had that like little success as he was trying to negotiate this. And this again is like he's trying to again do the impossible, direct this major Hollywood sequel for someone who hadn't really had any kind of track record other than this Piranhas movie that
Mm.
didn't do well. So then and again the all the things that he does so well with the slow build, character development, and action spectacle. I just don't think it gets better than this in terms of the action set pieces with introducing the Colonial Marines, which again something that set the standard for all movies after this of like you want that kind of crew of this. Even
Mm.
Avatar sort of knocked this off a little bit with
Right.
their own version of Colonial Marines, bringing in that dynamic and then seeing them kind of kind of get wiped out in impossible people or normal people put in impossible situations. How is Ellen Ripley, who was simply just like a truck driver, able now again to escape not only just one alien but a whole ton of them and also try to save Newt at the same time, and she doesn't, and there's that same thing again that Cameron does with his characters. So yeah, I'll talk more about the movie too, but what are your aliens thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is, yeah, it's another one of those, right? Like after the first Alien, which is not his, it's just such
Hmm.
a masterpiece. We've covered that too on the
We
podcast, I
did,
think,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, we did for the Ridley Scott episode.
Yeah. And that's such an eerie, like you said, Haunted House is a great description of that. It's a horror movie,
Hmm. Hmm.
but maybe one of the best ones. It made it, to me, like I'm a more of an alien
Okay.
head, I would say, than this one. But this movie, from like a action movie standpoint, and some of these deep themes of like motherhood and just like normal people, trying to fight against all odds. But really, just the action buildup of this movie,
Hmm.
that is sort of the thing which I think he overtakes the first one in that regard. And it's even harder because the first movie is a classic. It was an instant classic to
Hmm.
then take that material and to make something that is amazing. That's just so hard to do, which wasn't even yours.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's
so
true.
it's pretty incredible what he did with this, and I love that he has these like great collaborations in his career, right? Whether it's Arnold or Sam Worthington or Kate Winslet and Sigourney. Like she's
Hmm.
also been like this constant presence in his life. And I was watching one of her interviews, and like she worships him absolutely.
Hmm.
And she's such a singular artist in her own right, I think. Like
Oh yeah.
she's from the crop of Meryl, Jessica Lange, like that's the batch.
Hmm.
And all these people are, towering personalities of acting giants and what have you. But she probably has the most singular career than any actress in the history of time, to
Hmm.
be this sort of badass, fierce woman, but also be really smart and intelligent, but also vulnerable. Like she's the whole package, actually.
Hmm. Hmm.
If you were to sort of say, like, what would be like a female version of a, superstar male who has all the shades, but yet make it feminine, not just have like a carbon
Correct.
copy of
Hmm.
a male movie star, she would be it. And there's nobody like her. And I think she owes a lot of that to James Cameron, like this collaboration they've had through these movies, because she got nominated for a Best Actress Oscar for
For
Alien.
this, I know, crazy.
That
Yeah.
would not happen
Right.
now or then or ever, actually.
Hmm.
So it shows so much of what she did and what he brought out of her in this role. So that's the thing I was marveling at on this rewatch. Like, especially after watching her in Avatar 3, I was like, oh
Where you're
God,
not
no.
plussed. Yeah, yeah, you're not really that into her in that. Yeah.
No.
No, it goes back to, what we've been talking about too, is like Jim makes sure to focus on the acting and her perform. I think she definitely deserved to get nominated and probably even should have won this year for what she does in this film because of
Who
all the
won
things
this
that,
year?
um, was this the Out of Africa year? Maybe 86? I don't know. We'll have to look this up later. I can't pull from the top of my head, but,
I have to look. Okay, you talk,
okay.
I'll
Yeah,
look.
you can look it up. Yeah, the way that she deals with like the loss of her daughter, which is and the trauma of going back to the aliens and like she doesn't want to be there. She doesn't want to be even fighting against the aliens. She just wants to get out of there, but then the surrogate daughter of Newt involved, that's where you see like the motherly instincts come in and then you have to believe that she could hold that gun and be a badass with that flamethrower and go up against the alien queen and you do. I mean, I think this might be her best performance, honestly, in a
Hmm.
movie. That is in a giant action movie, a sci-fi action movie, and yet still the characters are what are what is remembered in the performances. I mean, that's again Jim Cameron, right?
Totally. Totally.
Still
Why can't I
looking.
find this? I should be able to find this.
The other thing that I love about this movie too, and is he did this in T2 and T1 actually, is the classic. We defeated the guy, the monster. It's over. It's done. And then actually, no, wait, he's coming back. Coda on this. And I think this movie
Uh,
is one of the best examples of that with the when they go back in the ship and everything seems to be fine and Bishop's like, "Oh, thank you for, trusting me." And she's like, "Yeah, you're actually a pretty good robot." And then all of a sudden the alien queen is there and stabs Bishop and then she has the classic scene in the loader robot where she's fighting
yeah.
the alien queen. But I love the fake out ending stuff of like, "Oh, you think it might be over, but actually the bad guy's still around." I think this is the best version of that. And just one of the best climactic fight scenes too. I mean, in this recent rewatch is focusing on that animatronic alien queen and the way that like they have this actor like hitting him with the Ripley character in that loader machine is just so thrilling and cool.
It's so good. Oh, so this is the color purple here, and I think yeah, Geraldine page one, it seems, for Trip to Bountiful.
Yeah, I think it should be Sigourney
86,
Weaver.
right? Or 89?
86.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
86. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I think it should have been her.
I
But
mean,
history remembers this movie and her performance. I mean, Ellen Ripley is like one of the most famous and action
iconic
stars of
characters
all time.
ever. Yeah, yeah.
What a character. But that's again Jim. He focuses on the character. It's not just the spectacle. Okay, so those are our
Spectacle,
masterpieces.
character, and emotion. It's still spectacle, I think. I think it's the simple emotion part, which still to me is spectacle. So it's
Okay.
all spectacle. That's how I define it.
Okay, yeah, no, that's
But I know
that's
what you
fair because the
mean. It's
emotions are
not just
big.
the
Yeah,
visuals.
they're simple and big emotions. I was meaning spectacle more like the action set
Right. It's
pieces.
not just that. Yeah.
Which yeah, I mean, this movie has some of the best and any film. It's so good. Okay, we've done the masterpieces, so now we'll move on to the wild cards. And why don't we start with your wild card, Karan? We only have a couple movies we have of Jim Cameron left, so there can only be a couple. What do you got for us?
Only be a couple. But yeah, this is like I feel like when I think of the world wildcard and directors' filmographies, like this is kind of in the Mount Rushmore of wildcards.
Yeah.
It's True Lies from
Hmm.
1994, starring Arnold, Jamie Lee Curtis, Tom Arnold. We've covered this movie too on the pod before, I think.
No, we haven't. This is
We
the
have
first
not? Oh, I'm
debut of True
surprised.
Lies. Yeah.
Yeah, but a fearless globetrotting, terrorist battling secret agent has his life turned upside down when he discovers his wife might be having an affair with a used car salesman while terrorist, blah, blah, blah. A lot goes on. There's something wrong with IMDb. Pages are not loading. But that's
Well,
okay.
I think we know. Yeah,
We know what
we know the
happens.
plot of the movie. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, this is like I remember watching this movie kind of right around when it came out, not in theaters, but on VHS, and just like having such a fun time watching it. And then much later in life, maybe like 5, 6 years after, discovering that this was made by James Cameron, and I was completely shocked by it. Or just like associating it's the same person who made the Terminator movies.
Mm-hmm.
That's what
Mm-hmm.
hence the wild card. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
of course, this movie, like we've been saying, with the spectacle of the action sequences, especially in the climactic act, the spectacle of the big emotions of, this husband and the wife and all of that is all there. But this movie is deeply funny and
It's hilarious.
it's
Yeah, yeah.
hilarious. And I think it's sort of it's a thrill ride, like all James Cameron movies are, but not in the sense that you would think of it. Like it's a
Mm-hmm.
thrill ride purely based on the relationship between these two people, and what would happen. And of course, it's set in a world of spies and all of that. So there's like thrill and intrigue and such with that anyway. But yeah, the why this movie stands out to me is like it's just so fun and funny. Like Jim always has like big themes of family and emotion loss and all of that. And there's none of that in here. Your everyday man quality and every woman quality is here for sure, except the everyday man is somebody who can't even fit in a
Yeah.
suit. That's the only part that like it cracks me up. I'm like, wait, you look like this, and nobody around you ever guessed that you're not who you say you're not.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's like not only can you not really be a spy because anytime you enter a room, people are like, "Oh my God, who is that?" But then
Right.
also he claims that he's like a computer salesman. Like it doesn't work in either identity.
Either
It
way,
does
no.
not work. But that makes it fun. It's Arnold, you know.
It's hilarious, exactly. And also, where are you from? Why do you
Yeah,
talk like this? Who's designing your clothes? Like all of those questions are completely unanswered.
yeah,
And the last thing I would say is this movie is also very sexy. There's something about their chemistry and some of the scenes that they had. It's sort of one of those childhood moments of those kind of love scenes kind of being seared in your brain. And then JLC, who, cannot and will not be put down ever, I feel like. I love her in this.
she's amazing,
Like that
incredible.
whole scene of like her, whenever I see like a vase of flowers somewhere in like a corridor, I always think of that scene that if you're dressed wrongly for a party, just toss out the flowers,
Yep.
put this, flower water, gunky, stinky flower water in your hair, slick back, and you'll be good to go. And tear out a few sleeves and a few, inches
Yeah,
of whatever you're wearing, or a few
yeah,
feet, and you'll be great. It's a,
yeah.
it's a great moment. It's a great movie moment. I love it. And
Iconic.
you're right. It's from like a movie from the 40s, actually, that
Hmm.
moment. I can see Katharine Hepburn or Irene Dunn or any of those people do a thing like that. It's very sort of screwball-y, actually, this movie.
Yeah, this whole movie really is, and I love that you put this in as a wild card because this is the his movies have comedy in them. But this is the first time he's tried to do an actual I mean, this is an action
Right.
comedy, and I
An
think the
action
best
comedy.
action comedy ever made,
Right.
in my view. But like that's a muscle that he hasn't tried since or before, and he nails it. Like the comedy in this movie, not only from like the way they stage some of the stuff, like it's from the director too. Like there's the scene when Arnold is on the horse chasing that guy. They do some good sort of like
Mm,
physical comedy around that. But the acting performance is not only out of Arnold, who's at the top of his game, but Tom Arnold steals the
right.
movie. Incredible. Bill
He's great.
Paxton
Bill
as that
Paxton
sleazy
is so
salesman
good.
is his quintessential role. I mean, I said maybe it was Aliens, but this captures Bill Paxton's sliminess and
Right.
desperation and kind of loserness, which he does so incredibly well. Incredible. And then, Jamie Lee Curtis, man, this is just a totemic performance. She should have gotten Oscar nominated for this and maybe even won that year. I think she does an incredible job. And it was interesting too, like Arnold didn't want her in the movie because he didn't think she could play normal and mousy. She's too hot. She can only play the hot wife. She can't do the. And then Jim Cameron basically had to force that casting on Arnold, and finally he like said fine. But she does so well at both of those. Like
Both
playing
of
that sort of
them.
like mousy housewife, sort of frumpy housewife, so funny. And that scene, like you said, is like the classic moment of the movie when she realizes, oh, I look like I'm supposed to be sexy and I look terrible. And then like split transition, and all of a sudden now like she's like the sexy hot wife. But then even when she's doing the dance for him, like sometimes she can't really do it. Like she like falls down or like realizes she's kind of uncomfortable. It's just an incredible performance. Like
Classic screwball
she's
stuff.
so it's a screwball comedy basically that Jim Cameron's able to do with incredible, amazing action and
Oh
big
yeah.
moments too. But
Big moments, big emotions across the board. This is the fun, right? I mean, I'm almost sort of thinking I want to put this movie on again on like a holiday movie list. Like it feels
yeah,
like a great like holiday Wednesday like afternoon kind of hang like everybody can get into. So
yeah.
if you're sick of watching holiday movies during the holidays, put True Lies on.
No, that's great because it's a family comedy, basically, right? Like
Yeah.
it's about relationships, it's about marriage, and that's what I think the movie does so well. In the beginning, it starts out with a bunch of action, and then the end of the movie has incredible, action when he's on the Harrier jet and stuff. But the
Amazing.
middle part of this movie is basically like a marriage comedy, screwball
Yeah.
marriage comedy from like the 30s. The stuff that Arnold does to try to get her like When he kidnaps her and they're talking in the room and Tom Hardy's like, "Did you sleep with the guy? Did you sleep with him or not?" It's just like so funny. But yeah, that's what makes the movie work. That's when the movie really shines. The rest of it is great, the other stuff, but like what makes this movie so special and amazing is that middle act that is basically
Right.
just a family comedy, is all that it is.
Absolutely. And she's like going on this adventure and the three of the Bill Paxton character, like it's just so it's so fun. This once again, this movie surprises me when I rewatch it, that I'm like, oh, this movie is so good, and so fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this one was interesting too, because like much like you, like I saw this on VHS as a kid and really liked it a lot. And then I always was waiting for like the good edition of the DVD to come out,
Mm,
and it like never did. And it was one of those because I've a DVD collection I was collecting ever since I was in high school, and this is a movie like I always wanted, and because it wasn't on a DVD in a good version, I didn't watch it for like 15 years. It was a very long
um,
time. I just didn't watch the movie because I was waiting for it to be like, I want the collector's edition. I want, the anamorphic widescreen. And then DVDs kind of came and went, and then it's Blu-rays, and there's still nothing. And I'm just waiting and waiting and waiting. And then finally, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, he finally released like the 4K True Lies. So now I can start watching the movie as much as I used to back when I was a kid on VHS. So it's an interesting one coming to this. Like I don't know it as well as I do the all the other movies we're talking about, other than the one we're about to talk about. I've seen like over 100 times and watch all the time and like are always on and things, so I know them so well. This one, because there was that 20-year gap of me not watching it, it's sort of fun to go back to it because I kind of forget
mm,
moments. And I'm like, oh yeah, there's this scene. This is so great. And then, like that lack of familiarity makes it more fun. Actually, on this rewatch, it was like really fun to watch. Like, yeah, this movie just
mm,
is just awesome. It's so good
mhm.
and just never will be topped, I think, when it comes to this action relationship comedy thing. I mean, they try with a Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which was okay, but like this is the quintessential version of that. Like how to balance action and comedy in a way where you're dealing with like terrorism and like nuclear weapons, but it never feels dangerous, really.
No.
And there's that other classic moment in this film too at the very end when they basically kiss over a nuke going off
Oh my
is so
God.
beautiful. It's like that is so Jim Cameron too. Like to make this giant explosion, this little romantic moment, and that is sort of when they kiss. You see the nuke in the background. It's like that is Jim right there
It's
in
so there.
in a
And
nutshell.
that's why you have to be in the right headspace to kind of take all this in. If you're in the right headspace, and if you, like you've
Yes,
kept your 90s child in you
yes,
alive. Like
yeah.
I've
He's still there.
discovered through these podcasts, doing these with you. Like if
Yeah.
you have him in the 90s, Alex gets transported right back. It's like he never left.
Yep. Yep. He's still there. Right. I see that moment. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember like renting this,
Yeah,
like, from Blockbuster and having like McDonald's, after school, whatever, and watching True Lies. Yeah. It
yeah.
still works, the
It
movie's
still works,
amazing.
but you have to be in the headspace. I will say that
Yes.
because
No,
this
that's
can, yeah, that's the thing with gym. Like, if you're gonna show up to scoff at it, you'll find plenty of fodder to do that because it's
totally.
easy to do. You have to, suspend belief, whatever the metaphor is, and just, come with an open heart, basically, to these
Yeah, yeah,
movies.
100%, 100%. Yeah, because especially this movie, definitely you
Especially this
could,
movie. Yeah.
yeah, you definitely could read it just because of the serious themes that that it is dealing with, or the plot elements of like
Right.
terrorism and nuclear weapons and all this stuff. But it treats it as comedy.
Yeah.
Another one of my favorite moments too is when the guy is like the terrorist is filming the speech of like we will rain fire down upon you, and there's the camera guy filming it and like the battery is dying, and you can see
Oh,
like the other terrorists are like, oh no, if the battery dies, what is he gonna like yell at me and stuff? And then the battery goes out. And he's like, we don't have the battery, and he's like, what? And I love that moment too is really funny. But again, like maybe in a certain circumstance or to certain people or in certain times, it might be read as insensitive or something, but
but at some point, I'm also like, these are movies, like lighten up as well. Like we are now in a culture where we've come like to the other side of this. Like everything has to be like, conscious and set right. And there's
hmm
definitely, place for that. Like he's
hmm
not making Hamnet,
no,
he's making this.
right,
So I think there's room for all of these things. You can have like a nuanced depiction of love, emotion, and theatrics and nuclear war in a different kind of movie, which
right.
his ex-wife has gone and done.
Oh, that's
Great.
right. Yeah, that's right.
Versus he's doing this. Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
there's room for both.
No, absolutely. No, that's totally true. This is what Jim does. He'll do this, and other people can
Yeah.
do those other things, and it can be great. Though, again, I think this movie does, other than the nuclear war piece, these are real. Like the themes around marriage and trust and how you show up in a
Yeah, there's
relationship,
truth
and
in that.
what sides do you want to show your partner? Should you show your partner versus having your own kind of identity that can exist on your own? I mean, you really look at it from that standpoint, and this movie is actually one of the better movies about like marriage and what it's like to be in a relationship, right? Couched under all these funny bits
Right.
and Tom Arnold kind of running around. So there's some real stuff in here, and that's again that's what he does, right?
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of marriages and relationships,
Oh, there we
what
go.
is
Good
your next
segue.
pick?
Great segue. So now we're getting to my wild card, which is, I mean, I think people can probably guess by process of elimination here. Uh,
What's left?
I know, really, what's left? It is The Abyss from 1989. So this is written and directed by James Cameron. IMDb plot summary: a civilian diving team is enlisted to search for a lost nuclear sub and faces danger while encountering an alien aquatic species. This movie starring Ed Harris, Mary Elizabeth Mastriano, and Michael Biehn is back in this. So this movie, the reason why I put it as a wild card is that he again is doing the impossible. Like the things that they were doing to capture underwater photography had never been done. Pushing the boundaries possibly too far with multiple actors almost drowning, himself almost drowning at one point. So
Mm,
like safety was kind of thrown out the window in a way that I think was probably not good. Um, did all these things, but it didn't actually deliver on box office wise, critically, audiences. At the time, this movie did not do well. So this is the only time, again, I'm putting Piranha 2 aside, that I think you can say he did not hit a grand slam, which all of his other movies I do think are, 10 out of 10s and all those respects I just mentioned, at least. I mean, box office and critical acclaim. And also, personally, I don't like this movie. It's not bad. I don't hate it at all. It's not a bad movie. I could just never get into it. I don't connect with this. And I've tried, even on this new rewatch, I'm like, okay, like let me just kind of come into this again and maybe this movie will land on me in a way that a lot of people really do swear by this film and love the movie. It
yeah.
just does not, I don't get into the characters, and I feel that the alien stuff, which is a little like more interesting to me, the movie doesn't seem that interested in it, and the whole end of the movie too feels a lot like a Steven Spielberg ripoff and not like James Cameron. It feels like Cameron trying to do Spielberg and not him doing himself as James Cameron. Oh, I
Hmm.
should note too that this movie, I've only ever actually seen the special edition of it, which does have a different ending and is a kind of a very different movie actually in terms of especially with the alien piece. So I just want to caveat that that's the version that I'm talking about, not the theatrical one, which I've actually never seen. So yeah, unfortunately on this time, I can appreciate the craft, and I'll talk a little bit more of what I love about the movie in a sec, but it just doesn't work, and that's why personally for me it's a wild card because it's like the one time that Jim, who never does anything wrong, and I love everything that he does. I can't really say that about this. This is like the little exception that proves the rule, and it also like was a kind of a flop in his career, and the only time we'll see exactly how Fire and Ash does. It seems to be opening well, but you never know. But this is the one time you can actually say, okay, this movie did not work.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are your
Yeah,
thoughts
I'd
on the
never
Abyss?
seen it before. I
Oh,
remember
okay.
like going to again like sleepover parties and kids' homes and such, and this would be running in the background. And I sort of had awareness that this is from the guy who made T1, and
Mm-hmm.
but I always found it kind of boring from the scenes
Mm-hmm.
that I saw as a kid because there was just people talking in like dark dungeons and stuff. And
Yep.
I don't really have much underwater sort of fascination and such or interest per
Mm.
se back then, maybe even now. So
You're
I
an
sort of
above
was
water guy.
like,
You're not an underwater guy.
exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And I remember sort of the silver alien sort of face, and that looked sort of cheesy and laughable to me even then.
Hmm.
So I never watched it, and then I grew up, and the reputation of the movie was not very good. So this was yeah, first time watching it in full,
Mm-hmm.
and it was, my expectation was so low that coming into it, I was like, oh, this is not bad.
Yeah, yeah. It's not a
It
bad
doesn't
movie. I'm not saying it's
work.
bad. Yeah. Right.
It doesn't work for sure. And I think you're right. Like it's a Spielberg kind of knockoff in all sense of the word, which is like the alien stuff, but also the human relationship pieces of like marriages breaking apart.
Good
Like these are
point.
core Spielberg themes, right?
Good
Of the
point.
dad
Yeah.
and the mom, and I think there's something about just those performances that they are pitched a little bit too high, I think.
Hmm.
And normally Jim is pretty good at the simple big emotions as we've been talking about, but he has good sense of like rhythm and pacing. You kind of meet the people, you understand the conflict, and then before it's time to get bored, the stuff starts to kind of then kick into high gear.
Hmm.
The structure of this movie is a little bit kind of all over the place, a little bit kind of more uneven because there are
Yes.
also multiple storylines that you're following. The performances are also a little bit pitched higher, I think. Like there's a lot of yelling and such, which, add to the big emotion. That's what he wants. But for whatever reason, it sort of there were moments where I it took me out of the movie.
Hmm.
Like the conflict just didn't seem super real. That said, was I bored? Absolutely not. Like
Hmm.
it's still Jim, and there's
Yeah.
always artistry and themes being explored, and if anything, this movie feels like an essential text to, what he ends up doing after, whether it's the Avatar movies, even Titanic, you can argue. So it's an essential text. So I'm glad it's on the list, right?
Yeah.
I don't think we get the career that he's had after this had he not made this movie and had it not been the flop it was. I think it probably fired him up in a whole other way to go and then do what he did, like you said, the
T2.
T2, and
Right.
then and all these water themes that have stayed with
Hmm.
him since, and it kind of defined his life, it seems, in a big way.
Actually, yeah, you're right. He has his whole career. He kind of thinks of himself now more as an oceanographer and someone who does exploring than necessarily a filmmaker. Like it almost
Right.
kind of seems like he's doing the filmmaking to make money to invest in his submarine technology that he's developing. I mean, he really is like actually breaking ground in that field.
Right.
It's not just one of these like people that are rich and successful and claim they now
A
know everything.
billionaire, as I read recently.
Sorry.
He's a billionaire now.
Yeah, I know he is. Yeah, but he's one of the few good ones, you know. But yeah, I think that what works in this movie though is you do get the sense when you're watching this, you do it is impactful that this is all real stuff. They're
Yeah.
filming. Anytime there's someone swimming or in a suit down there, those are the actors doing it.
Yeah.
These sets are incredible that they built underneath the water, so you do feel the claustrophobia, the pressure, like especially in the scene when Ed Harris is like going down that like
Mhm.
the abyss, the titular
Mhm.
abyss. You do. I start feeling like, oh my God, like my body is sort of like feels like I'm under pressure, and just like you really get the sense that there's a lot of water there, and I think that helps. It also hinders the story too because it does feel very claustrophobic. I know that's what he's going for, but as
Right.
an audience member, to me at least, it doesn't make it interesting to watch or help me connect with the characters or something about it just isn't as like I want to escape the subs for a little bit and you're
Right.
barely above the surface. And then the aliens piece really does feel like a tacked on message of like, oh, everyone should get along on Earth and like you
Right.
guys shouldn't be fighting like Fifth Element. I don't know if you've ever seen that
Oh
movie,
yeah.
but there's that literally the message of Fifth Element, which I know came after this. So I'm not saying Abyss crib Fifth Element, but that message works in that movie because the whole movie is kind of about that. This it feels like, oh, and by the way, there's some aliens and don't use nukes. Thank you, bye, and the movie's over. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, I
Yeah,
thought
that
this was
ending is very odd. Yeah.
yeah. Which again, did you watch the special edition or the
Yeah.
theatrical special edition? Yeah, yeah. So I mean, maybe it's. I mean, they did go back and spend a couple $1 million to redo the ending. So this is the ending that he does want.
Mm.
But it feels kind of rushed. However, I will say that it was interesting watching this because you talk about like this is a key text for him, as an artist and a person. This movie was about divorce, right? There's a couple who's
Mhm.
going through some hardships. They're not divorced in the film, but they're leading in that direction. And at the end of the movie, they get back together and they realize they do love each other and all these things. And the end of the movie is them, embracing. And I think they actually talked to. He's like, okay, Mrs. So and so, and they use her last name. It's like, okay, they're back together. And Jim Cameron at the time was going through a divorce with Gail Ann Hurd, and it's just interesting comparing this to the other, famous like divorce movie, as they say from the 80s, which is a Temple of Doom that Steven Spielberg made, Spielberg and Lucas are both going through divorce at the same time, and the movie is kind of like mean spirited and like you can get. I like that movie. Maybe we'll talk about it in depth at some point. But you can tell these are two guys that are sort of like frustrated and angry, and like the tone of the
Right.
movie is pretty dark. Whereas this movie, even though he was going through a divorce with the producer on the actual film, it has a happy ending and they get together at the end. And it's like, oh, well, maybe then Jim is sort of like a big softy at the end of the day. So in his world, instead of using this movie to show how angry he is at women or how his relationship is falling apart and there's no hope and like there's no love in the world, it's just interesting that he was able to make a happy ending when his relationship did not have a happy ending, and he was literally working with his soon to be ex-wife on this film. So I think it speaks to how he looks at the world. He is kind of an optimist at the end of the day. And it's just interesting to see that, especially when comparing to something like Temple of Doom. I don't
Maybe,
know.
we'll never know. Or this is the kind of storytelling and movie making he's drawn to
The
and
sentimentality again.
understands that that's what works and that's
Mm.
what he knows how to do. Who knows? But either way, it is interesting because, yeah, it's not typical. Mostly you'll see their frustration and anger if they
Right.
were going through something like that. Well, maybe the frustration and anger is showing up in other ways because the movie doesn't hang fully.
Right, that's it. Well, it showed up on anger to like again the actors. I mean, this is one of the notoriously one of the worst in terms of unsafe and harrowing film productions
Yeah.
of all time. I mean, there are other movies where people died. Luckily, no one died on this set, but all the actors like went through too much, and to the point where I mean, I guess he didn't learn because Titanic, a lot of the actors are complaining too about the conditions. But again, him pushing himself to too far, maybe in terms of him being a dictator on set and trying to get the impossible out of people, where at some point there is a line, right?
Yeah.
And I think he crossed that too many times with this, and maybe that's why it didn't work at the end of the day. Though
Absolutely.
some people do really like this. It's not universally considered a
No,
movie that isn't good. It just has never, unfortunately, worked for me. Maybe one day I will watch The Abyss and be like, oh shit, like all of a sudden now I'm into The Abyss. But so far I'm just standing on the edge of The Abyss. I'm not gonna jump in.
I think I'm gonna stay away from the abyss.
Okay. Okay, you're staying away from The Abyss. Okay.
I looked into it and I was like, okay, great.
You
Thanks.
peered
Yeah.
in. Oh, I forget what was the quote in at the beginning of the movie. You stare into the abyss and like the abyss stares back. The abyss stared back to you, and you didn't like what you
Yeah.
saw, and you don't have to stare into it again. You're
No,
not
exactly.
you're not staring into that abyss.
Um, okay, so I think now is the time that I've been waiting for since the beginning of
Yes.
the episode, which is let's talk about what he should do next, which I don't often get that excited about saying that for people who are above the age of 70, or how old is he?
Yeah, I think he's like 70, right? 72, something like
Yeah,
that. He's
exactly.
not a
So
spring chicken, but he's still got years in him. Like
definitely
Eastwood just made a movie last year. He's like 98, so hopefully, knock on wood, we got decades
20
more
more
of
years or
Jim.
more.
Yeah.
Exactly. So do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
You seem to be chomping at the bit. Why don't you go first? Let's go for it. What do you think he should do next?
I have so many different directions that excuse me, that I want him to take. But I'll stick to this one, which is that
Okay.
I want him to make basically a combination of Titanic and True Lies. And
Okay.
what I mean by that is it's real people, a love romance, epic kind of movie, but it has a lot of great comedy as part
Mm.
of it. It can be a period movie or it need not be, but something that is less self-serious,
Okay.
and work with really good actors. And everybody knows you as the spectacular spectacle king anyway. I think let's just step away from that a little bit. Still have that, but
Hmm.
let not that be the focal point of the whole thing that you're coming to the Avatar, fantasy island theme park ride. Like, let's make this movie in that vein of Titanic. That because if there's anybody who can make a movie like this other than Christopher Nolan, I suppose, in our
Hmm.
current times, it's probably Jim, that kind of brings the world together in like a Titanic like way. And I feel like he has one more of those in him, I
Mm.
think. That's what I want him to make.
Okay. Well, I'll give my what should he do as a what I want him to do as a human. which I do. No, I think we need an emperor of the world. I think we need literally someone to rule over the entire planet, and I want him to be that guy. And
You're
I will go.
crazy.
I think he should conquer every, and we would be better living under a society run by Jim Cameron than any of the shit that we're dealing with right now. And I'm not
Oh
even a
my
guy who's a
God.
fan of kings or dictators or emperors. Like I'm a democracy guy. I think that's the best thing. But the one exception to that rule is I want Jim to rule over us. And I would be in that army. I would fight for him. I would die for him. And I think we would be in a better place. I wish for that for our future. That would save humanity. Actually, it's funny. I don't know if you caught this quote. It was one of my favorite quotes of his during this press tour. They were asking him about, the state of the world today, which obviously is total shit. Everything's going down the drain. And he's like, yeah, the world is terrible. I don't like the direction that humanity is going. I'm going to misquote it a little bit here. I don't like the direction humanity is going. It's definitely going down the drain. We're forgetting a lot of the things and we're making decisions that aren't good for the future and we're regressing as a society. And I'd like to think that my movie Avatar has slowed that. Because we don't know. What if I never made Avatar? We'd probably be in a worse scenario than we were today. And that is hilarious.
That is
I'm like,
hilarious and
but you know
crazy.
what? He's right.
That's why I don't want him to do anything like that. Just make movies and that's that.
I mean, look,
Exactly.
he's you can't prove that there's not an alternative world where there was never an Avatar release. Maybe we would be in even worse shape than we are now. I just think that's like the old Jim Cameron, like from the 80s, saying like crazy wild stuff. I just love that quote. But okay, in terms of a filmmaker, if we can't have him be Emperor of the World, I do am excited after this Avatar. I do want him to stay in the Avatar world as his next thing. Or I don't want him to step away from the Avatar world. What I liked about these last two is I feel like it was ending a chapter of what he's going to tell in the story and going on to something different. And I was a little bit disappointed, like I said in Fire and Ash, where it felt like more of the same. So I'm excited for the new take on this world and what else he's going to do after this, which he did promise something to be different. So I do want him to continue with the Avatar. I don't want him to step away from that. But outside of that, because I don't think he necessarily needs to make that as his next movie either. Like it was interesting actually. The longer space between the avatars, I think better. Like
Correct.
it's fine to wait. Maybe this one came a little too soon. If they'd waited
Yeah.
2 more years, maybe people would have been a little, more excited about it per se. So maybe go back to Avatar, but put it on hold for a second. And I'm similar to what you're saying. Like after watching True Lies, I'm like, he's such a good comic director and we don't really have action comedies that are good anymore. He could easily now come back to no more, emotion capture for a while. Like save that for Avatar. Film a movie, with actors where we're able to see them again and make a. I mean, maybe I could even say True Lies 2. Bring back Arnold. That would be kind of fun.
Yeah, that would be
But have it be a an action comedy. I'd want the action because that's what he does. But I think he owes. I don't want to say owes us. That sounds unfair. I'm sorry, Jim. I didn't mean it like that. But it would be great to see him do another crack at the comedy game because he only did one and it was amazing. So he really, I would love him to do something else, but it would have to be big too. I don't want like some small, kitchen sink drama or something small. I want a big
yeah, it has
canvas
to
for
be
him.
big and epic for
Gotta
sure.
be big, but
Yeah.
I'm with you on like it should be like funny would be great to see that.
Funny and light on his feet
Yeah,
and also maybe not an ensemble piece, have
right.
like fewer people that you can really focus on, like a few story threads as opposed to like everything being self-serious and big teams, and then you kind of lose track of that a little bit, which feel like what happened with this one.
Yeah, and
So
in
yeah,
this one too, I thought like I was mentioning when we talked about in our review, like there was more comedy, especially with the Quaritch character, than he's done
yeah,
in a while, Jim Cameron. So I'm like, okay, he still has it. Like, what if the whole movie was sort of that type of attitude that
right.
Quaritch was having? That would work, I think, that
Yeah,
tone in a live action comedy. But
yeah,
we'll see. I mean, he's talked about doing some Hiroshima film. He wants to do something around the
yeah.
bombing,
I'm sort of like,
which
don't do that.
I am with you on that. I don't think that is
Don't do that.
the
It's going to be
right.
Pearl Harbor style thing. He's just
Yeah.
not going to get the nuance. We just have had, an Oppenheimer, which I know he was up in arms about, but Nolan and,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
step away.
I agree. I
Your
don't
own
think
thing.
right. I don't think a historical epic, especially about that subject matter, is really the right thing for him to do. Um, so I'm hopefully that is just something that either he hands off to another director or just it kind of never leaves development. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, hopefully he'll definitely be making more movies. But also, it's good to see him out there breaking ground in the under the sea. So he can keep doing his submarine stuff. I think that makes him happy, and I just want him to be happy. I love Jim Cameron. Yeah, sorry for the glaze in this episode, but
Oh, you love I didn't get
you
that
didn't
from
get that?
the top. I just
Yeah.
didn't. Maybe you were too far below in the abyss. I just couldn't hear
Oh
you. I'm
yeah,
like
yeah.
here above.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I stare into the abyss and Jim Cameron stares back at me. That's with a crown on his head. But hopefully everyone enjoyed, this episode here. And why don't you we only have one episode actually of the year left before we take our break, and we're nearing New Year's and the end of the year wrap up time. So why don't you remind listeners, an annual tradition of ours, why don't you talk about what we're doing as our farewell to 2025?
Yeah, we are doing exactly that, which is we're going to cover our top three movies each that defined our year 2025. So, important clarification, as always, that this is not our top movies of 2025, movies that came in the year, although we might have a few of those, but it's really more about us looking at the year through the eyes of movies that we
Hmm.
watched in this year. So, these movies could have come at any point in 1925 or 2025, doesn't matter. So it's really a true reflection of the year. So yeah, excited to get into that with you.
Me too. Yeah, it's always a fun episode, and then yeah, and then we'll take our break, but we'll come back soon with that final episode of the year. Meantime, hopefully you enjoyed this one. Please, leave comments below on if you do think Jim Cameron should be our emperor, and would you join me in the battle lines to make that happen? Also, maybe there's some we pretty much talked about all his films, but if there's another one, maybe you love Piranha 2, and I think we should have talked about that, or if there are any Abyss defenders out there. I'm genuinely curious to know why, what works for fans of that film, so I can maybe one day like it. We're available here on YouTube as well as other podcast platforms, so don't forget to subscribe. If you haven't already done so, please rate and review us as well, because that helps new listeners find us. And with that, I think we'll see you soon. And Piranha, sounds like we'll both be making trips to Pandora again. I want to see the movie again too, so we'll see it again.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
All right.
Later. Hasta la vista, baby.
Oh.
His name is James Cameron, the bravest pioneer. No budget too steep, no sea too deep. Who's that? It's him, James Cameron. James Cameron, explorer of the sea, with a dying thirst to be the first. Could it be